Hello guys, and welcome to another Hellfire Citadel Mythic Guide by Method. Today we're going to be talking about Kormrok, the third boss of the instance. I'm Roger Brown, I'm back from my vacations, and together with me, as always, I have Justway.
Hello everyone, and welcome back, Roger. The setup you want to use for Kormrok is 2 tanks, 4 healers and 14 DPS. For the tanks there's no real requirement for classes. For the healers there's no requirement either, except you want some good raid healers to heal up all the damage that's going to happen. And for the DPS you're going to want to use a mix of good ranged and melee DPS, as there's enough cleave and some targets might be out of range of the boss.
Now in terms of positioning, nothing special is required throughout the majority of the fight. Generally speaking, you want to have a relative spread around the boss, having the boss in the middle of course. And we'll go into further detail as we explain the abilities.
As for the abilities, most abilities are the same as in Heroic, with one exception, this being the leap ability. This has one additional mechanic in Mythic, and that's the splash mechanic. Once the boss jumps to the closest pool, he will empower the next 4 abilities from that pool. The orange being the explosive runes, the green one being the grasping hands, and the purple being the fell outpouring. The new Mythic mechanic is the splash mechanic attached to the leap. Once the boss jumps into a pool, there's going to be splashes or swirly zones all around the room that the raid is going to have to soak. If the raid does not soak the splashes, there's going to be sludge all around the room that's going to be dealing magic damage, and you cannot stand in it. This will limit the raid's movement and the area that you have to fight the boss in, so you want to soak as much as possible.
And now this sludge, if you don't soak it, is going to stay there until the next time the boss does his leap ability, which is a pretty long time. So you want to soak as much as possible to make everything easier, to dodge abilities, to move freely. Now, even one player can solo soak those swirly zones on the ground, the sludge basically, and therefore you want to have some assigned positions where everyone is going to stand individually, or you can use a raid add-on like the Exorcist raid tools to make your life easier.
Yeah, about 10 to 15 seconds before the boss leaps again, all the sludge is going to disappear from the room and you'll have time to reposition yourselves to get ready for the next jump.
Even if it means that you're gonna be out of range of the boss because he's leaping away from the raid, it's fine. Like, don't worry about the DPS, just make sure you're in position at your assigned location and soak your assigned spot. Moving on to the next ability, which is the only one that doesn't get empowered in this fight, is Pound. Now, Pound, just like in Heroic, the boss is just gonna slam the ground and everyone is gonna take damage and splash around them. Just spread around and don't hug each other. Pretty simple.
Now the next ability is the fell outpouring. These are the waves that are going to be coming from the purple pool, except when it's empowered. When it's empowered, there will be waves coming from every single pool, so all 3 sides of the room, and you're just going to have to sidestep and dodge the waves as they are coming towards you. Now because the room is not that big because of the splash mechanic, you're gonna want to be extra careful where you position yourself and the raid.
So fell outpouring is the purple mechanic of the fight. The orange mechanic is the explosive runes. What you need to do is just have someone step into them and explode them before they grow so big that they explode by themselves and deal damage to the whole raid. Now, when they are empowered, meaning when the boss has jumped into the orange pool and gets the buff, they will keep respawning every time you soak them until you spawn them on top of a previously existing explosive rune. Now, this might sound a bit confusing, but it's pretty easy to handle. Basically, the new rune, after you soak one, is going to respawn in front of the character, depending on where your character is facing. In order to deal with this mechanic, there are 2 ways to handle it. The first way, and the one that we use, is we have 2 rogues, and of course we use rogues because they're fast and they cannot die. And they start from the same spot, pretty much, and because the runes spawn in a hexagon formation in the middle of the room, we just had one guy running clockwise and one guy running counterclockwise, and they basically meet up halfway and finish up the runes like that. The other way to handle this mechanic is you just have everyone soak the runes as they spawn. Since you have the whole raid spread around the boss, you just have everyone soak the runes and pull them towards the middle. Gather them all in the middle so that they all overlap, and that's probably the easier way to handle it. Of course, when there is only one rune left, if you soak that, it will not respawn, because that would be kind of silly if it did.
Next up is the grasping hands. Just like in Heroic, these are the little hands that are going to come out from the boss, crawl through the ground and then grab you and hold you in position until you kill them. They'll also deal a little bit of splash damage around every player, so you cannot stack up completely. You need to have a loose spread so not everyone gets insta-gipped by them. And once they've spawned, you just AoE the shit out of them. Now once the boss jumps in the green pool, this ability is of course going to get empowered, and the empowered ability is dragging hands instead of grasping hands. These hands will drag you to the closest pool, and once you get into the pool, this pool is going to deal massive amount of damage, so you're likely going to die when you get to that point. Now, because of the Mythic mechanic, the splash and the sludges around the room, you're going to need to have to assign people to leave a path available from the middle of the room towards one of the pools. And that's where you're going to have to stack up, because otherwise the dragging hands would drag you through the sludges, and that's not what you want to happen, as you're going to be taking extra damage and it's likely going to result in a wipe.
Now, the most important thing with the dragging hands is that everyone gets dragged in the same line towards the same pool. And this might seem easy, but sometimes, because of the way that the room is structured and it's not a perfect circle, you might have the situation where everyone starts from the same spot, but a few people are getting dragged in the different pool or a different side of the same pool. And you don't want that, because that's going to limit your DPS, and you're going to have some people with a full HP dragging hand and you have to single target it, or getting dragged into the sludge. So make sure that you have a clear path towards a pool and everyone gets dragged towards that.
Now for the tanks, there are still the tank abilities that are going to be happening in each phase with each color, and these are the same as in Heroic, there's no difference at all. The purple one is SWAT, which is going to be knocking the tanks back a very long distance unless you're against the wall. Second one is the Foul Crush for the green pool. This is going to make them get stuck into a big hand and you need to kill it. For this hand, you want to make sure that you're close to the raid, because if they are about to get grasping hands or dragging hands, they can AoE your hand together with the small hands. Now for the last ability, this is Explosive Burst. This comes from the orange pool, and the tank's going to be stunned and is going to be blowing up in a 40-yard range around him. Now we have a weak arrow for this for the rest of the raid, so they can move away from the tank that is blowing up.
Now, a good idea is, because, as we mentioned, the room is way limited compared to Heroic because of the Mythic mechanic, the sludge. So in order to give some more room for the raid to move away from the tank, a good idea is to have the tank who is about to get the explosive burst move to one of the corners of the room that you have free. That will make it way easier for everyone to move away, or they won't even have to move away.
Now all these tank abilities will apply Fell Touch to the tank. This will increase their magic damage taken by 50%. So you're going to want to swap on every tank ability to avoid having this stack up too high.
Now, the last thing that the boss does is, when he hits 30% HP, he's going to go into a small enrage phase, which basically means 30% more haste, so he's going to do a bit more damage, and he's also going to do his abilities a bit faster. That doesn't change too much from the fight, but just be prepared for some extra damage. You should definitely not keep Bloodlust for this phase though. Bloodlust should be used at the start of the fight to minimize the overall length of the fight. It's going to make it way easier.
Now there's one more decision to be made for the boss, which is the order of pools that you're going to be doing. Since the leap jumps to the closest pool, you can decide which pool to start with, which one to do second and which one last. But he will not do the same pool twice unless he's done all the previous ones. But the fight does not last that long. So first in our kill we did the orange pool to get the empowered explosive runes. Secondly we did the green one to get the dragging hands. And lastly, we did purple to have the least amount of waves hitting us. And for the purple one, we did it at the entrance of the room to give us the most time to dodge the waves.
We did this order because the purple pool used to be a bit harder. Now they've changed it a little bit, so it's easier to dodge the pools coming into the middle of the room. So you don't even have to move to the entrance like we did. You can just stay in the middle and dodge all of them, just sidestepping them. One important thing is, during your sidestepping of those pools, there's also going to be a pound usually. That's a very crucial part of the fight. You want to be spread. Use your personal cooldowns, maybe a health tonic, just survive that phase and you're going to be good to go. Because of all the gear and the legendary rings, probably won't even have to do the whole third phase. You will have to do for sure 2 of the pools, like full phase 1 and phase 2, but the boss should be dead around the time that he does the third leap or right after. So you won't have all 3 abilities empowered for too long.
Now there's not that many debuffs in this fight, and there's only 2 that the tanks want to keep track of. The first one is the Fell Touch, which increases their magic damage taken, and the second one is Explosive Burst. You're going to want to track not only your own, but also the one of your co-tank, because if he gets it, he's going to be stunned and he cannot do anything against the boss.
And that's basically the whole fight. Now, as we mentioned, we had this certain order of orange, green, purple, but you can choose your own depending on which abilities you find easier for your raid to handle. And just to remind, a couple of tips that will help you progress faster in this fight. First off, you can use the Exorcist raid tools, the add-on, to pre-assign the position so that you soak as much as possible from that sludge. It's going to make everything easier to dodge and handle. secondly, there is a weak Cora that will be in the description below, which you can use for the explosive burst. Make sure that no one gets hit by it. You will have a yard counter that will turn green as soon as you're out of range of the tank who is exploding. It's pretty easy to avoid it.
And that brings us to the end of our Kormrok guide. We hope we found it useful, and good luck on this boss.
Yeah, this boss is the first one who drops a tier token, so good luck on those helms, and remember to like and comment on the video, and subscribe if you want to see more of those Mythic Hellfire Citadel guides.
See you in the next guide.